This is Obligated Whisper reading number 13. And I always try to remind people that if they happen to trip on a later reading, like this is still getting into chapter 10, and you want to start from the beginning, go to my live feeds, and you've got about, 10 or 11 about 1 hour length readings, and then go to the folder called gullerudbooks.com, and you'll find all of them in consecutive order. So this is reading number 13, continuing in the chapter 10, which is called Samuel. In 1989, Samuel Gallagher was now 45 years of age. Next to a tall bottle of cheap red wine, Tom Petty's Free Fallin' was playing on the stereo. He was wrapping the last of 75 oil paintings, all of them ending up in his friend Besla's van. Many abductees of UFOs, flying saucers, have reported great changes to their personalities and makeup after they experienced their traumatic encounters. In many of them, artistic abilities seem to burst from within some untapped sources like summer seeds upon meeting first rains and bright sunshiny days. Musicianship sprang from people who never touched a keyboard or a string on a wooden shell. New actors, writers, playwrights, singers, songwriters, dancers, all have been documented cases as post-abductees from alleged UFO encounters. It's as if the experience or experiences broke open an available part of their psyches that had been dormant since their births, as if their own home environments held them back somehow until the alien experiences forced them open. In Samuel's case, he began painting and drawing. Ever since his sexual exploits with Ocean, he exhibited increased abilities with a passionate interest in painting. Landscapes, people, animals, realism, surrealism, abstracts, and even an occasional sculpture here and there. But primarily, he painted pictures from his memories with Ocean, his two sons, Samuel and Rain, and his one daughter, Agcelia. Ocean and the Greys never asked for Samuel's input when naming his children, but Samuel always assumed the best, and that Ocean had indeed named them on their behalf. He also painted the Greys and some of the spacecraft, the places he remembered when they visited faraway sites like the backside of the moon and areas that had no place to land, as they just floated in vast nothingness surrounded by billions of twinkling stars. When his parents were still alive, they neither encouraged nor discouraged his interest in painting and the arts. And when they asked him about the depictions of the aliens, he lied and told them he had always loved sci-fi books and movies. Towards the end of their lives, Samuel began to go to church less and less. But he didn't wish to stress his parents out any more than necessary with his stories of the Greys and Ocean and their grandchildren somewhere out there past the dark side of the moon. His parents saw Samuel for most of his years as a kind of social cripple, what was commonly referred to then as a nerd, someone they feared might never find love in life, would never marry. So anything he showed an interest in was better than observing him from the sidelines, staring out his open window on long summer nights in a comatose-like state, mumbling odd words about stars and oceans and rain. And as his talent was hard to ignore, as it increased in aptitude and skill, they would privately hope there might be at least one thing he could get a hold of in his attention deficit-riddled life, a possible career in the arts. Samuel packed the last 16 by 30-inch canvas into Besla's 69 VW bus. He sighed. "Besla, you're the best." "No, you are, Sam. Just remember me when you're famous after tonight, okay?" They putted down the dirty, cluttered Santa Fe back alley as they jetted onto the main street and then the highway until they reached the art gallery called Dancing Coyote. They were 2 hours early so they could have plenty of time to figure out which walls were the best for which paintings. I'd like to put the 4 kind of explicit ones in that back room, if that's okay, Mokai, asked Samuel as he lugged the last and largest piece in. Besla was now sitting near the front of the small gallery at a small table with her black tights-covered legs crossed as she sipped an early Thai tea. Mokai Ayatoya and her late husband Kura Rahuri, they both were of Maori descent, the indigenous people of New Zealand of Polynesian ancestry. Usually the woman would take on the surname of her husband's, but in recent years many kept their original. Had run the gallery since the early 70s. In late 1977, Kura died in a helicopter crash while on an arts grant research trip to the peoples near the forests of the Valdivian temperate rainforests of South America. So now Mokai alone curated her small but strategically placed and tasteful art gallery on Griffin Street, near the core of Santa Fe's art district, only a block and a half from the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum and the New Mexico Museum of Art and other important museums and art galleries. The Dancing Coyote may have been small and humble compared to its neighbors, but Mokai often managed to get some of New Mexico's most intriguing, masterly, and accomplished new talents. Giving the artist 70% commissions might have had something to do with her attraction to the artist who discovered her. "What's this one?" she asked as he was hanging the last painting in the main room. "I don't remember that one." "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had shown that one to you, Mokai. That one is of my son, Rain. I'm holding him while Ocean is hugging us from behind." "It's beautiful, Sam. I don't think I've seen you place that much detail and depth into any of your pieces." It was special because it was maybe the nicest memory I do have. They were, well, the grays too, actually really kind of sweet to me, even when I begged them to let me keep my children. They kept saying they would return, but the hybrid program was too important to mess up here on Earth. Mokai learned of Samuel's story in an issue of the Santa Fe New Mexican. After several trips to his apartment and a few lunches, they started talking about a solo show for him, and at first Samuel was reluctant. He had already received a great deal of scorn and humiliation at the hands of both readers of the paper and from neighbors and former friends. He didn't know if he was up to exposing his intimate paintings just to become the target once more of more derision and intolerant behaviors from either the ufology crowd or the debunker crowd. He experienced heat from both groups, those that thought he was making it all up and tainting their own preconceived ideas of what alien abductions were or should be, and those who thought the entire landscape was bogus, delusional, or a con to garner attention and money. But Mokai persisted with each visit, ensuring she would invite intelligent, sensitive, worthy people. Perhaps many of them would not be believers, but she would make sure her VIP list including those who would treat him and his story with respect. "They're coming," said Besla as the clock neared the 7 p.m. mark. The first to arrive were a few of Mokai's best friends, followed by some art students from the local art college. Already by 7:30, the place was packed. Samuel wasn't as nervous as he thought he might have been, though this was his first solo show. His participation in group shows, too, was few and far between. Everyone treated him, indeed, with the respect he hoped for and deserved. At 7:40, his old friend, who had recently moved to Roswell, entered the brightly lit room. "Essie! Hey, Dick. Essie was a nickname a few of his closest friends had for him, as Dick was for his friend Richard Dickinson. Their friendship dated back to Samuel's art school days after Samuel had returned from the war. The school was a small one on the edge of town, but now Richard had been living and loving in the flying saucer capital of the world, Roswell, New Mexico. Richard heard rumors of the Vietnam War vet who painted extraterrestrials, sought him out, and they slowly gained each other's trust. Samuel, being the Santa Fe abduction nut, and Richard, being the local middle-aged ufologist nut, who headed the preeminent chapter of the New Mexico Aerial Phenomenon Investigators, or NMAPI. Back in 1970, he took the place of the director who decided he needed to place all his energies into college. Richard took the headquarters to Roswell when he moved to the town where the 1947 famous UFO crash made state, national, and international news headlines. He had his organization's name changed to the abbreviated Roswell Aerial Phenomenon, or RAP, R-A-P, as soon as he took up the new residence. He became known as the UFO Rapper in many radio and local TV circles. "So, Essie, you made it into the big art world at last," laughed Richard jovially, slapping Samuel on his back as he approached the old friend he hadn't seen in 7 years since moving to Roswell. "Looks fantastic. Come over here. I want you to meet the curator," Samuel said simply. They could catch up on news later, and he noticed Mokai was in a rare moment of not being corralled into a corner by a salivating art student or beaming UFO enthusiast. "Mokai, this is my old friend, Richard Dickinson. He runs the chapter of UFO research down in Roswell. He's been a supporter of me and my story ever since we became friends way back in the 70s. Mokai extended her hand. "Pleased to meet you. I believe Sam has spoken of you a few times. He says you're a rather successful researcher in paranormal activities and phenomenon." "Well, if by successful you mean I've interviewed and sometimes talked into hypnosis a lot of kind of high-profile abductee cases and witnesses to UFO activities, I like to think so. So thanks. It's a murky business, and through it all, it's not easy nailing some of these stories down. If there is photographic evidence, they're so often either blurry as hell or just difficult to decipher whether or not they might be hoaxes. But overall, I gotta say, most of the people I meet in this field seem honest, humble, and they just want to be heard with their stories and experiences." "I'm sure you're successful then," smiled Mokai. "He was the first person who took my painting seriously, Mokai," Samuel added. "If it weren't for him, I probably wouldn't have so many of them. My memories are sometimes gappy and clouded, but Dick here said, 'Sam, if you want to remember more, start writing it all down. You have the gift of art. Start drawing or painting what you do remember.' And the more I followed his advice, the more I painted. The more the memories would just flood back into my mind. As soon as I finished one painting, I couldn't wait to get the next one down on canvas. I'd wake up in the middle of the night at times, grab anything that was near my bed, a notebook, a canvas, grab a pencil and scribble down a memory that would pop back into my head. I didn't want to forget those times. Then in the next day or so, I'd paint those sketches into detailed pieces. It got so addictive, I was afraid I'd start to make some of them up. But then a new memory would come back, and I'd say to myself, 'Nah, you don't have to make any of this shit up. You have enough memories to fill a book.'" Mokai could sense the bond the two men had. Two misfits in a world where UFOs were too often not taken very seriously. She was happy to see her friend Samuel lock into somebody like that, for she always sensed he had few friends to lean on. After a few glasses of champagne, all three found themselves drifting from conversation to conversation, from small circle to a new fan or curiosity hound. But it would never be too long before Samuel and Richard would find themselves drifting back to catch up on news, to learn of any new happenings or secrets. It's been eating at me, Essie. Have they come back? Did you get a chance to see how your kids are doing? Is Ocean still okay? No, Dick. Not since Exilia's birth. Almost to the day. You remember the last time I told you about the kind of party they had for me when all of them were there? Rain, Exilia, and Samuel, and of course Ocean. My odd love, Ocean. I miss them. I miss her. I still get a little mad at them now and then. Not much I can do, though. Would you go back with them if they asked you to? Samuel thought for a moment, but only a brief moment. It did not seem difficult to answer. Oh, yes, Dick. In a heartbeat. There's nothing for me here. Well, except for this. And he swung his arms around in a circle, indicating the gallery and his paintings. And Mokai has been the best thing for me since Ocean. He paused again. So, what about you? What's new in your world of Roswell? Any people that have blown your socks off that you haven't told me about yet? And any new researchers who've opened your eyes to new possibilities? I bet you know more about them than even I do by now. Well, the timing couldn't have been better for your show, my friend. You obviously haven't been reading my newsletter lately, have you? Can't say I have, not in a while. Doesn't mean I don't admire your work, Dick. And I love the pictures. Nice try, geekhead. Anyway, just a little northwest of here, in the Bisti Dinazin, you know, that wilderness with all the hoodoos. Well, here. And from within his wool jacket, Richard pulled out a recent edition of the Roswell Daily Record, the same newspaper that reported the famous controversial crash in '47. There, in bold headline, read the words, "Photographic proof New Mexico is being visited by extraterrestrials?" ? There was a question mark after the heading, but Samuel studied the two photos carefully. A landscape shot revealed some hoodoos that appeared to have some strange silhouettes of some type of humanoids, and to the right of that was a zoom-in, blurry but large eyes and an oblong head made it obvious it was not human. Behind the figure, there appeared to be some other odd-shaped figures of apparent shorter stature. "This isn't thought to be a hoax?" asked Samuel slowly, still staring at the photos and not yet reading anything but captions and the same headline. They looked a little familiar, but only a little. "It reminds me of the saucer crash on that rancher's property right after World War II, Essie. Some would say hoax. Others are not too quick to go there yet. The photos are being studied by experts. But get this, the photographer, a Judith Baklanov, wasn't alone. In fact, she had not one, not two, but 5 witnesses with her. They all were hiking the Dinazin Hills and swear they saw figures walking up on that hoodoo they call, the one they call the alien throne." Samuel spewed a mist of champagne, hitting his friend on the chest. "Sorry." "It's okay, man," Richard laughed, wiping his vest with a napkin. "Man, I reacted the same way when I read the article. But I contacted this woman. I interviewed her. It's all in my latest issue." Again, Richard pulled another publication from his jacket. It was the UFO Rapper, R-A-P-P-E-R. His association's official publication, all in black and white, but cleanly printed with a nice dose of photographs, illustrations, and even humor cartoons. There were always articles, many well-written, documented, and fairly balanced for both skeptics and believers. Richard, though willing to believe almost anything UFO related if it helped his cause, strove to keep his public outlets as non-sensational as possible. Samuel leafed through the 30-page single-spaced typed bulletin. Keep it up. Keep it. Read it later. You have an art show to promote. And at that moment, an attractive woman in her late 40s with her husband, who ran another Santa Fe gallery, began talking with Samuel. Richard wandered about and finally grabbed some food to eat. An hour passed, and Samuel was being politely asked all sorts of questions, from serious scientific-born angles to those trying to prod Samuel into perhaps semi-humbling admissions he may have been under the influence of some kind of drugs or deep sleep trances when he experienced what they saw in the images about them. All were polite, though. Just about a third understandably doubtful on different levels. Samuel wasn't there to proselytize the unbelievers. He was simply there to share his art. Everyone admired him for his candor, seemingly honest to a fault transparency, and his humility. Richard decided it was time to check out this new gothy friend of Samuel's, Bestla, and the two were chatting as he approached. Bestla, this is my dear friend Richard, but I like to call him Dick. It's because he really thinks I'm more of a double dick than a dear friend, Richard smiled as his hand shook hers. Nice to meet you, Richard, she said, smiling with amusement. Sam was just showing me your publication on what you do in Roswell. I find it all so fascinating. Oh, it is. Richard found out Bestla Nilsson was a makeup artist and costume designer from some local small theater groups, and for the occasional feature film that might roll into town. When business was slow, she gave massages with her portable massage table. She also sold New Age power juices, drinks on the side. Richard shared the article from the Roswell Daily Record, and she asked what most New Mexicans knew. Isn't that the same newspaper? Same as the one that made Roswell famous. Yep. I kind of think I was smart to buy 20 of these collector's items. Should have bought 100, she smiled politely. Here, this one is yours. Samuel looked hurt in a feigned grimace. Dick, I thought you loved me. Hey, I gave you my own rag. That'll be more famous than any old thing the record shells out. Bestla was a speed reader, and she looked up at the two ufologists in front of her. This is incredible. The photo is so weird, and yet they seem to be so believable, asked Richard. Yeah, believable. And it's like this Judith doesn't even want to believe what she saw. There were no cars for miles. They were all hiking for miles. No other cars, even in their parking lot. I mean, if it is a hoax and they even hiked around them and then they saw them disappear into the rocks, I mean, what the? I know. Wait till you read my interview, Essie. I'd give you an extra copy, Bestla, but I only brought one. It's okay. I can read Sam's. Sam, this is so amazing. I mean, maybe they know Ocean, your kids. Samuel's eyebrows shot up because this was the first time it genuinely sounded like Bestla perhaps believed his convictions, his tales, his abduction stories and experiences. Yeah, it's pretty cool, Samuel said slowly and with some apparent doubt of uneasiness. I mean, look at the close-up. It's cool, all right. But that doesn't look like the people I met. I mean, kinda, yeah, but the eyes, they're not as big, and... Who knows, buddy, said Richard, if it's a real thing or not. And if they are real, maybe they have different races, just like we do, on Earth. This might be, I don't know, they're Chinese or Africans or Indians. Samuel nodded. But he kept wondering if this was just another hoax set up by elaborate pranksters who did nothing but try to make people like Samuel look more and more difficult to believe. So I was thinking, Richard continued with his usual enthusiasm, I once interviewed a former military guy who told me about these underground alien bases the government has been trying to keep secret. Oh, no, Samuel interrupted. You're not going there again. I want to climb into a spaceship right now just so I don't have to hear this again. Besla, good luck. And Samuel headed for the refreshment table where, like a breath of fresh non-conspiracy air, Mokai was standing. She was talking to a tall man with ruddy attire, and when he turned around, Samuel immediately recognized him. JJ! There he is. The man of the hour. Essie, how you doing, dude? They hugged and patted backs. It had been some time since they were in each other's company. JJ, brother, where have you been keeping yourself? I've missed you, man. The usual. I've been traveling a lot. I get caught up, and before you know it, I neglect things like beloved friendships. This show looks amazing. I was so thrilled when Mokai called to tell me about it. Well, I have about a dozen or so new ones you haven't seen. Why don't I point them out to you? Give you some of the history behind them. So JJ and Essie spent the next 20 minutes going from one new painting to the next, while several onlookers eavesdropped on their talk so that they too could learn more of the background for some of the strange and ethereal paintings. This one I'm kind of partial to. It was the one Mokai had expressed an interest in. Samuel was holding baby Rain in his arms while Ocean's tall, lithe body stood proudly behind them, her long, slender arms enveloping them both. Essie, I don't know if you'll be offended at me for saying this or not, but I kind of find her pretty sexy. Samuel laughed. Not at all, JJ. I kind of do too. I mean, she's like both scary and sexy to me at the same time, but more the latter. She reminds me of an Amazon Morticia Addams type, and yet when I was with her, she made me feel like a king. I think she's probably being a very good mother. JJ knew Samuel felt that his sperm was used to probably create hybrids to help save their species. He knew by the hints he received from the Greys in Ocean. He knew Samuel tried to talk them into his staying with him and his family. He knew the loneliness Samuel experienced ever since the visitations ceased. After more conversation and Samuel fielding some questions from new fans, JJ asked if their mutual friend Dick was there. Did our conspiracy theory guru happen to make it? Yep, all the way from Roswell. I think he has the hots for Besla. Over there, yuppers, he's still talking with her. Must be scoring a few points. Look at them laughing it up. That they are. JJ sipped some white wine. I don't want to interrupt them. I'll wait a bit. The theme to Close Encounters of the Third Kind began to play from the quadraphonic speakers when it looked like a polite time for JJ to approach Richard, as Besla excused herself to the ladies' room. JJ, you made it, you old fool, cried Richard, and they exchanged hugs. You gotta see the new stuff our Astral Stud has produced. Have you seen them? They're phenomenal. Oh, I have. Essie showed me them just now. And you're right. Not only are they more intriguing than ever, and his memory seems to be honing in on more detail, his painting skills have improved as well. It's pretty damn fantastic, if you ask me. Yeah, I gotta take some pictures before the end of the night and talk him into letting me interview him for my magazine. What you been up to, you old pirate, you? They chatted a bit, and Bessler returned with a new glass of champagne. "JJ, my love!" She hugged and squeezed him for a long moment, longer than Richard thought was necessary. And we'll close there as we continue in Chapter 10. And once again, you can get the book on Amazon. Just type in my last name and Obligate Whisper under the book section on Amazon.com. Or what's even easier is you go to gullerudbooks.com. And there you will find links to either the paperback on Amazon or the link to the hardcover from lulu.com. And again, if you want to start from the beginning of the book, go to the live feeds here on my YouTube channel. And then when you get to the end of those, simply go to my playlist, which is called gullerudbooks.com, and you'll find all the successive readings right there. Thank you for listening to more of this book. Good night.